I used to be a total tool junkie. Seriously, I would spend hours, and I mean hours, every single week trying out the latest and greatest app, totally convinced that this was going to be the one that would magically fix my entire business. But, spoiler alert, it never worked. All I got was this digital graveyard of subscriptions I'd forgotten about and a ton of wasted time. If any of that sounds even a little bit familiar, then you are in exactly the right place. So, how do we stop drowning in this tool tsunami and actually start making progress? Let's dive in. First things first, let's talk about what's at stake here. An MIT study found that 95%, just let that number sink in, 95% of all AI projects in businesses fail to deliver any return on investment. So why is that? It's not because the technology is bad. It's because most companies are just trying to slap a fancy high-tech Band-Aid on a process that was already broken. They're starting at the finish line. Today, we're going to figure out how to join that winning 5% by starting where you're supposed to, at the very beginning. All right, think of this explainer as your roadmap. First, we're going to talk about the tool overload problem. Then, we'll get into the process-first solution. After that, we'll map out the business tool landscape, talk about the awesome AI automation layer, and then finally, we'll zero in on how you can find your first quick win. Okay, let's start with that feeling of just being completely paralyzed. I have been there, spending an entire afternoon just comparing different project management tools, only to end up more confused than when I started. You're not crazy, you're just navigating what's called a noisy ecosystem. There are something like 14,000 different software tools all screaming for your attention. And their marketers, they're really, really good at making you feel like you're missing out on the secret to success if you don't buy their tool right now. And this quote from Liam Otley just hits the nail on the head. This is the trap. Businesses see a flashy demo, they get all excited, and they just dive right in. I actually saw companies spend a fortune on this beautiful state-of-the-art CRM system. The problem? They had never actually written down what their sales process was. The result was pure chaos. The sales team, of course, hated the tool because it didn't match how they actually worked. Nobody used it, and that six-figure investment went completely down the drain, all because they started with the tool, not the process. So what's the answer? Well, it's actually a really simple but kind of profound shift in your mindset. Think about it. You would never, ever build a house without a blueprint, right? So why on earth would you try to build a business without a process? The companies that really succeed with technology, they don't chase after shiny new objects. They build clean, repeatable systems first, and then they go find a tool that fits that system, not the other way around. And here's how the experts do it. It's not some abstract theory. It's super practical. It starts with education, just getting everyone on the same page. Then comes identification. This is where you get your hands dirty. You ask your team, hey, where does work always seem to get stuck? Or what's that one question you get asked over and over and over again? You map out how work actually gets done, and you find those real points of friction. And only then, in the development stage, do you even start thinking about a tool to solve that specific high-impact problem you just found. Okay, so let's say you've done it. You used the method, and you've identified a real bottleneck in your business. Now what? You still have to pick a tool, don't you? Well, this is where our map comes in. Think of this next part as your GPS for the tool world. It's going to help you ignore all the brand names and all the marketing hype and navigate straight to the category of tool that you actually need. Now, the foundation for any good system is something called a standard operating procedure, or SOP. And look, it is not as boring or corporate as it sounds. You already have SOPs in your own life. It's the recipe you follow to make coffee in the morning, or the little mental checklist you run through before you leave the house. In a business, it's just writing down how we do things here. That's it. This is the blueprint for your house. Process expert Lila from Process Driven has this brilliant way of grouping all these thousands of tools into just 4 simple categories. So first up, you've got words and whiteboards. These are things like Google Docs or Miro. They're awesome for brainstorming, but they get messy really fast. Second is training tools like Trainual. These are great for one-way knowledge transfer, like when you're onboarding a new person, but not so good for day-to-day teamwork. Third is automation. Tools like Process Street. These are incredibly powerful for taking the human out of repetitive tasks, but they can be complex, and usually only a few experts can manage them. And that brings us to the 4th category. For most small teams, this last category is what you might call the Goldilocks solution. It's work management tools, things like ClickUp, Notion, or SmartSuite. And study after study shows that teams using these platforms see huge gains in productivity because they really hit that sweet spot. They're built for collaboration, they're flexible enough to handle both your daily tasks and your documented processes, and they can grow with you. For most of us, this is the best place to build your company's central operating system. So once you have that solid system in place, that central hub for your operations, now you're ready for the really fun part. Think of AI as like an afterburner for your jet engine. It's not the engine itself. So, for example, imagine your whole process for qualifying new leads is perfectly mapped out in your work management tool. Now, you can plug in an AI appointment setter that just sits on top of it, automating that very first step and feeding perfectly qualified leads into the system your team already knows and loves. And the tools that are available right now are just mind-blowing. AI setters like Your Atlas can literally call and book leads within seconds of them filling out a form. AI app builders like Lovable let you create your own custom internal apps just by describing what you want in plain English. You can use a tool like 11 Labs to create an AI clone of your own voice for training videos, or Vapey to build a custom AI agent to handle basic support calls. And the best part is, a lot of these offer free trials or demos so you can test them out on a tiny piece of your process without any huge commitment. I know this can all feel like a lot, so where on earth do you start? Well, you ignore the giant change the world projects. I worked with this small e-commerce brand that was spending 10 hours every single week manually creating invoices. It was just a soul-crushing task. Their quick win wasn't some massive AI overhaul. Nope. It was a simple automation that created and sent the invoices for them. And just like that, they got those 10 hours back every single week. That is the power of finding your quick win. So a quick win, as you can see here, is that perfect mix of high impact and low difficulty. The best way to think about it is like starting a snowball at the top of a hill. It starts out small, it's easy to roll. But as it gets going, it gathers more snow, more speed, more momentum, until it becomes this unstoppable avalanche of success. That first little win proves to you and your team that this whole process first thing actually works, and it gives you the energy to tackle the next, bigger project. So let's find your snowball. I want you to ask yourself this question right now. What is that one task? Is it manually copying customer data from one spreadsheet to another? Is it that endless back and forth on Slack just to get a simple approval? Is it answering the same 5 customer service questions over and over again in your email? I promise you, your biggest opportunities are almost always hiding in the most boring parts of your business. So, here it is, your recipe for success. It's really this simple. Step 1, just find just one, boring bottleneck. Step 2, use that 4-category map we talked about to pick the right type of tool for that specific job. Step 3, start with a simple tool in that category. Don't go for the most expensive, most complicated one. You can always upgrade later. And finally, step 4, document the new, better way of doing things in that tool and get your team on board and using it. That's the whole plan. You know, I used to despise doing my expense reports. It was boring, it took hours, and I was always behind. The day I finally automated that process, it freed up a surprising amount of mental energy that I could pour back into the creative stuff I actually love to do. Just remember that 95% number we started with. Almost all of your competitors are out there right now wasting time, money, and energy on the wrong tools. This is your chance. Your competitive advantage doesn't start with a flashy AI demo. It starts by perfecting one boring process. The only question left is, which one are you going to choose?